Good nap. Okay, it's apparently we've gone overnight. It's Thursday about 12:30, and we're doing another show. This newfangled thing called television on something called Progressive Soup. Now, I was walking down after I got out of the time capsule, being in there for 150 years. I'm walking around town and I see this beautiful building on School Street. That looks like it's been done, a lot of different things. It says high school or middle school or different things on it. And there's this great music coming off of the lawn. There's some real music, some old style, well, not for me. Not for me, and a pretty gazebo. And I thought, there I was, right back where I used to be, right back in the day.
Yep.
What's going on? What's with this concert? The concerts they have there. Who organizes those?
I think it's great.
It
brings the community together. And
yes, that is the summer concert series in Bethel, and it's they run. Just started them this week, as a matter of fact, and they run every Sunday night through the summer months, starting in the first weekend in July, up until the end of August, and it's at 6 o'clock on the lawn of the Municipal Center. Every Sunday. It's about a 2-hour show. Last night we had a great band that does country western and kind of rock and roll fusion. They're called Nashville Drive. This week we've got another great band coming back for the second year called the Hollister Thompson Band.
Oh.
Really good stuff. And we have everything from, we even have an Elvis impersonator. Now, before you got in your time capsule, you would not have met Elvis.
My school marm's husband was named Holliver, what is it, Thompson? Hollister Thompson?
Hollister Thompson.
My school marm's husband had that name.
Could very well be related. But great stuff. By the way, that building wouldn't have been there when you got in your time capsule because the railroad used to swing around and go out to Newtown.
I remember that railroad. I remember that they called it a spur. Headed out eastbound.
Yep, that's correct.
Cut down around where Taylor Road is.
Main Street. Yep. There used to be a trestle that went across Worcester, right over the top. You can still see where it connected over and then would go right in front of the old, the second meeting house and around the corner and then out toward Newtown.
Well, it's good to see the railroad hasn't disappeared, thankfully.
Yes.
Even though you've got those newfangled jalopies. So what goes on inside that building? You said it was the Municipal Center now? It's like a town hall?
Yep, that is the town hall. That is where all the action occurs for the town government of Bethel. Not only the town government, but the town school system. That's sort of like the government headquarters for our town.
Okay.
Now, that building has a great history, too. You know how if you walk around and you look in a building, you'll find a brass plaque someplace, and it'll say Town of Bethel, and it says who the first selectman was and who the building committee was and the architect and all that. You know who's on the name on the plaque in that town hall? Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Because that building was put up in 1939 using federal funds that were designed by the Roosevelt administration to break the back of the Great Depression. So federal government paid for that building.
Wow.
So it was the first freestanding high school that Bethel had in its history. It did that for many years. Then it transitioned into the middle school when Bethel High School opened up in 1968, I think it was, 67, out at the Educational Park. And then when the new Bethel Middle School was built in 1989, Town Hall, or the old high school / middle school, sat vacant for a couple of years, and then it was reconditioned and now represents Bethel Municipal Center. It's named after Clifford J. Hurgen, who was a longtime selectman in the town of Bethel. So that's where the action of town government takes place. My office is there, tax collector, assessor, town clerk, public works, utilities, Department of Education, Department of Social Services, Senior Center, Teen Center, and Human Resources. And the gymnasium, the cafeteria where a lot of things happen downstairs. That's used for like exercise classes at the Senior Center. Toastmasters, and the general purpose room for meetings, and meeting room A, which is where Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance meet.
So, young gal, you went to middle and school there?
Yes, I did. Went to middle school there, but I know people went to high school there too as well. So. No, and I remember out back, we didn't really, having recess, it was really just a parking lot. But every time I drive by, I think, wow, there's this kind of parking lot back there. But we all kind of went out for
Well,
recess.
there's a great picture of that old building when it first opened. And okay, so if you look at the front of the building now, the gazebo is off on this side, and there's a sidewalk that angles up and goes to the front steps and then angles back.
Right.
When it was built, School Street was not there. That was a driveway for dropping kids off right at the front door. That was the road. Now it's just a sidewalk that leads up to the main steps, but that was just the road.
Wow.
So as I said, that's where the action happens. Bethel is, and this is very traditional with New England, but not known anywhere else in the country. We have a town meeting form of government. I have come to realize over the last couple of years in talking mostly to parents when I go to budget meetings and things, that a lot of people move to our area and they have no idea what that means.
Right.
What it means is we are the legislative body. Most people come from other areas where there is an elected city council, and they have all the power, and they have a mayor. Now, we have a board of selectmen, but for many items, the legislative body is literally defined by our charter and by state law as all of the qualified electors in town. So that's why we have to pull people together to have town meetings to do things like pass the budget along to be voted on at a referendum.
Right.
Any kind of special appropriation. The Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance have to approve it, but by themselves they have no authority to actually spend the money. The people of Bethel have to give us the okay. So, and that's different. When I was in business and I used to travel around the country, I would talk to people about that and they'd say, what is that?
Right.
You mean you have to actually bring hundreds of people together in a room to do anything? And I said, yeah, that's basically right. You don't usually have that many show up, but that's the New England way. That's how it works.
Wow.
So there's a lot of independence between the different boards. No one board is or commission is very powerful. And it was designed that way, and it literally goes back all the way to the 17th century when people did not want to have a strong government. They wanted a weak government so that they would retain more control locally. And that's another New England thing.
Now, the folks at the next table button in our conversation, and that's okay. It's okay. Button in on our conversation, and there's a question here. Starts with the statement, the term selectman is gender specific. Have you considered changing it? Or are women allowed to hold the post? And not having been around for a long time.
Two?
Yeah, we did.
Yes.
Two select women.
Yes, the word selectman is written in state law in the town charter. And I would say, thank you to the folks at the next table. They're absolutely right. In the modern era, it should be updated.
Now go back to eating your own soup.
Select person, I guess you could say.
Select person would be a way to do it. It's something I should probably throw into it. Whenever we have the next charter review, that's something that could be done. But we actually have had two female first select men, although they preferred, as I recall, to be called select women.
Yeah.
And that, of course, was Judy Novacek from 1999 to 2003, I think it was. And then Alice Hutchinson. And I think Judy was the first female select woman first select woman that we had in our town's history. But I'm sure there'll be more.
Right.
So
seems likely.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and Alison Hutchinson, she runs Bird's Books, a bookstore now in town.
Shout out. Bird's Books.
Shout out.
Right. Yes. So no, that's a good question. Yeah.
Thank you. Now go back to eating your soup.
How did you get involved with town politics?
Oh, I got involved in town politics by butting in as a concerned parent. That goes back to the early 1990s, and quite frankly, at that time, I wasn't particularly thrilled with some of the things that were going on in the school district. And I'm going to sound like a pain in the neck parent, but that's how we work.
They all are, always have, always will be. That's their job.
But they're
all meant to be. They're all button skis at heart.
No, you're right, and that really describes our entire system of government. Being the citizen who gets involved. we rely on that. So I first started volunteering in the schools. I was on this thing, we don't have them anymore, but they were called site-based management committees. They were groups of parents and teachers who would get together to advise the administration on like how much money we need for this textbook or for these musical instruments, whatever. And that led me to decide to run for a seat on the Board of Ed. So I ran for election in 1997. I came very close but did not get a seat, so I ran again in 1999, was elected, and then I wound up serving 10 years on the Board of Education. I served 7 of those 10 years as chairman. Those were great years. I got to tell you, my colleagues from all political persuasions, the more diversity you have on something like that, the better the outcome. So we had Republicans, we had Democrats, we had independents, we had pro-Bethel people. And through those years, we renovated 2 schools. We renovated Barry, and it wasn't completely finished till I was off the board, but got the high school project started, hired new people, had great leadership with Dr. Gary Chesley, completely revamped the curriculum, and today we have a school system that I am immensely proud of, and it's been nationally recognized and recognized in state and New England levels for excellence in so many different ways. We've really got a good thing going with our schools today, and I got to give thanks to all those people that work so hard. Great staff, great leadership, and my board members were absolutely terrific.
Another note, shout out to the great curmudgeonly member of the Board of Education, Stuart Carlson. Shout out to you.
I had the pleasure to serve with Stu. He's still doing a great job.
He's the guy that always is the contrarian, from what I've heard.
You know,
and every group needs somebody to say, when they all seem to be thinking along the same lines, you need somebody to come and say, well, hey, what about that?
Right.
You know, you're kind of drifting into a conversation about politics in general and what is not happening in Washington, D.C., where people are polarized and they're digging in and they're not working together. And local government can't work that way. And I'm happy to say that what we do here in Bethel is in my opinion, is the epitome of how it should work. I have great respect for my colleagues in all the other boards and commissions. They bring great diversity, and it's the blend of those ideas that allow us to do things like get all these projects to fix our roads and make our schools excellent. It's really been a fun thing to do. I'm humbled to be serving the town of Bethel, but I love it. We've got a lot to do.
I guess as long as nobody can leave a town meeting and say to themselves, you know, I wish I'd had my chance to get my say.
Right, of course.
As long as everybody knows they've at least had their moment to speak their mind, and not be ridiculed and be listened to by everybody, that's a good thing.
That's right. Well, when I meet people who move here from other states, sometimes they'll say, "You mean I get to vote?" Yeah, you do, because that's not their their experience has been it's this thing that's off in town hall, and you can go watch them, but you can't really.
It's top-down politics rather than. I guess maybe it's overused, but the term grassroots politics, where everybody's a blade of grass in the field, and every blade of grass has the opportunity to be part of the field.
Yep.
No, I think that's great.
And the blades of grass that care enough to show up at meetings are the ones that get heard the most.
That's true, and that is a little bit of a source of concern to me personally, because I've noticed over the years, and I think this is just human nature, that when people are happy with what's going on, they say, I don't need to go.
Yeah.
Right.
But you really have to stay involved and make sure that the town stays on the right track. So I'm always begging people, come on, we got a town meeting coming up, and we're going to be voting on whatever, we're going to get a new dump truck, to replace the one that just finally fell apart because it was built in 1968.
Right.
We get a lot of use out of our equipment, I can tell you that. We're very frugal. But we do like to have as much citizen involvement as we can possibly muster. It makes for a better outcome all around.
Now, the younger dude that sometimes shows up on their show as a co-host to Emily here, He wanted me to throw a little shout out to good friend Billy Michael, who's always for many decades apparently has been a big part of keeping the pot of soup stirring.
He keeps it hot. That's true.
Well, it's always good to have differing,
Absolutely.
differing opinions.
The diversity makes it work. That's true.
Some issues that are out now in the public are the crematorium. What else? The new cell phone tower. Those are some of the issues that people in Bethel are talking about.
Right.
A
lot of hot button issues. You're right, and I guess this is a term I don't remember that term from years gone by, but hot button crematorium. Something about a cell phone tower. Now, when I came back, they gave me one of these little, and I don't know what it is. I guess it's a telephone. But you know what? If you don't want a cell phone tower anywhere near your house, throw the damn thing out. Don't even have a cell phone, and then you don't have to worry about it. So that's just my thought. But so you've got the cell phone tower, you've got this crematorium, which I guess is coming back in popularity. It used to be a big thing. I mean, people used to be cremated, and that was it. And now it's a big to-do about that.
Taxes. People are always in Bethel talking about
taxes forever. Taxes are always, people always want to complain about what they get in government. But like you say, they come on down to these meetings and they're right in the midst of it. Yeah. So they get their money's worth if they're looking for the entertainment value of the exchange of ideas at a town hall meeting, and the police station, which is I guess the thought is to bring the police station into the 21st century. There's some question about whether it's maybe too big or a lot of things about that. Too expensive. But these are the kind of things that they get people out talking about stuff, and then, as you say, things are going to go to a vote afterwards, and sometimes every vote that comes down, something just short of 50% of the people are going to walk away saying, we lost. Yeah. But then they have the opportunity to come back and revive, make some adjustments. Like I hear your town budget sometimes take 20 or 30 or 40 votes some year. It seems like
the referendums, 6 or 7.
I think since I've been involved in town politics, the most number of referendums I can remember was 6.
Yeah.
We were getting a little uncomfortably close to breaking that record last year when we went 4 tries. Yeah. This year we settled it on the second try. Of course, the goal is to produce a budget that people are comfortable with on the first try. I think we had some influences that unfortunately tipped the balance a little bit because it was very close. I mean, one of them only failed by a couple of votes, literally. Right. And I think some of that had to do with a little bit of a misunderstanding about what the mill rate is and how it works. People assume.
What is the mill rate and how does it work?
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
The mill rate is a number that the town uses, and this is under state law, by the way. In fact, it's used nationwide. It is a number that you use to calculate how much taxes you're going to pay on your property, what's your level of taxes. Right. The mill rate is one half of an equation. The other half of that equation is the average of all the property values in your town. So what happens is the process is the town sets a budget, and so this is a process that takes many months. I mean, we really start working on it half the year. Goes all the way back for like 5 or almost 6 months. So you whittle it down. You look at the things you have to do. We need this amount of sand and salt. Right. We need this amount of we need to keep the trucks running. The plows.
Teachers.
We need the
education.
Teachers, education. So you build this budget from all the different departments, and you come up with a number. And then from that number, you start adding in revenue that comes from other sources. So the state of Connecticut gives us approximately just a little under $10 million a year for schools. It's called Education Cost Sharing Grant.
Right.
As I mentioned, we have been very eligible for a lot of grant money for roads.
Right.
So you add that revenue in. So now the number of that you need to raise from local taxes starts getting smaller, right? So you add in these grants. There's a cost sharing from the Pequot Indian tribe casinos. We get a little bit of that. There's a manufacturing offset that we get from the state. Get a little bit of that. So now you've got a number that's smaller, but now this is the number that local taxpayers have to fill. And I think last time it was like 52 million, something like that. So you take this entire value of all the property and you divide it into that number and you come up with a mill rate. So for any individual piece of property, let's say your house is worth $400,000. You take 70% of that number and you multiply it times this mill rate, which is 0.003112, and you come up with a number, and that's the number you pay for your taxes. Now, here's where it gets confusing. Every 5 years, the state of Connecticut forces every town by law to do a property revaluation. That doesn't change your taxes in any way. At the end of the day, if the town needs to supply $52 million in tax revenue to fund all the town services, that's what you're going to get. But it adjusts the value just to keep it current, the average of all the properties in town. So when your properties are increasing in value, times are good, stock market's good, property values are going up, property values go up, the mill rate is adjusted downwards, and the tax revenue stays the same.
So you stay with the same amount of taxes,
Yes.
but your multiplier value times the mill rate, as you say, the values go up, the mill rate goes down.
That's right.
The values go down, the mill rate goes up. They adjust
That's right.
to balance out in order to come up with the final number that the town needs to run.
That is exactly right. Now, here's what happened that I think really threw Bethel for a loop. And we're not the only ones, by the way. This happened in many towns. The last time Bethel revalued was 2012, right? 2012, and you are still in the real estate business after 150 years. So you know that 2012, following...
I sold houses and that aren't even there anymore, believe it or not.
So 2012.
Well, 2012 was the lowest point following the big economic crash of 08 and 09.
Right.
Property values continued to go down.
That 1808?
Yeah, right. So property values were at their lowest in 2012.
Yep.
So and remember I said, reel back, by state law, you reval every 5 years.
Oh, yeah.
Subtract 5 years from 2012. What was the year?
2007.
The highest peak.
That's when they were. We were that flat period because they kind of crested out in the middle of
That's right.
2006, and you have a 5-year period where things are going up. You have a 5-year period where things flatten out. You have a 5-year period where things slide down, and then another 5-year flat period, and then you start the 20-year cycle over again.
But
it just happens that way.
Well, the difference between the peak of the market in 2007 and the bottom of the market in 2012 caused our mill rate to go way up.
Wow.
Even though property values went way down. Now, here's the part that many people have a very hard time understanding. They assume that a high mill rate automatically means they're paying more taxes. But in this case, it didn't, because the property values went down so much. So the fact is, today in 2015, 63% of our homeowners in Bethel are actually paying less in property taxes than they did in 2012. Their taxes actually went down. And the funny thing about this is that many people never noticed it because the difference wasn't real huge. Right. In some cases it was. Mine, because my property value went down so much below the average that my taxes have decreased almost $600 per year.
Wow.
But most people don't see their tax bill because it goes to the bank where their mortgage is held. And once a year they get a letter and it says, well, your interest rate's going like this and your taxes are going like that. Your monthly mortgage payment is going to change by $20. They didn't really notice that their taxes actually went down. So 1 week before the first referendum this year, the News-Times, and I'm not criticizing the News-Times, I used to work in the newspaper
That's
business.
my job. Go ahead.
The News-Times published an article about mill rates, and they had a chart. This was on the Sunday paper. And on the left side of the chart, here's Bethel and Newtown, way up here. And then here's this town, this town, this town, this town. And people said, oh my gosh, look at that. Our taxes are way up here. But they weren't. They really weren't. As I said, 63% of our residential homeowners are paying less than they did in 2012. Now that means there's a few that pay a little bit more, but it's not a huge magnitude.
Right.
There are a few, and I don't want to make anybody angry at me, people who built brand new homes that were, say, less than 2 years old when the reval came in 2012, got absolutely clobbered. Clobbered. Because their value was based on the price they paid, and then the mill rate went from like 26 up to 31. So they got like a $2,000 or $3,000 hit all in 1 year, and they were tremendously unhappy, and my heart goes out to them.
Right.
We have no remedy in law for that, however. There's no way to fix that.
The structure of how to determine the thing is in place. It's a mathematical formula, and sometimes you win and sometimes you lose. Oh, by the way, shout out to Jackie Smith at the News Times. Good friend, good friend Jackie Smith.
She does a great job. And I want to be very clear. I'm not criticizing the story. I know the reporter very well. He bent over backwards to play it fairly. He didn't say anything that wasn't true. It was just the dumb luck of that chart showing mill rates.
People love charts.
That's right.
They always have. They always will.
Right.
Now on education, does every school child in Connecticut get the same amount of funding for their education? And if not,
no.
Why and how could that be corrected? How could it be changed?
No. In theory, the state of Connecticut is supposed to balance that out, but Connecticut is one state that is heavily dependent on local property taxes to fund education, and obviously there's big differences between wealthy towns and poorer towns. So unfortunately, it's a problem for the state. They have to come up with a way to more equitably fund education. So,
such as maybe having education funded from state taxes, which would allow towns to not lean on local property taxes, which are lower property. You pay lower property taxes to your town, because your education is a big chunk of the town budget.
That is true,
and the money gets paid through a higher state income tax.
Yes.
And then every child in Connecticut gets the same amount of education, the same amount of tax dollars spent on them.
Right. The theory is that it spreads the cost of education more equitably across the whole economy.
And with that, I'm going to take another nap. I'm tired. It's been Progressive Soup. I'm subbing in for David Stevenson, Emily Volpintesta, co-host, Matt Knickerbocker, first Selectman of Bethel, and
thanks for being on our show.
See you next week.
All right. Have a nice nap.
Thank you.